in the South Asian families, it is perceived that going into the entertainment industry is not really safe, it's not stable.
My commitment to it shows them that this is something that I care about.
When your family is in support of your dreams and aspirations, everything else becomes easier.
Support can show up for you. We all have to individually hold ourselves accountable. Nobody else can pull you out if you're not willing to yourself. Remembering moments when people give you encouragement, regardless of where they come from, is always going to be your external source of validation.
When you're 90 years old and you're going to look back at what you do, you don't want to live with any regrets.
Ground yourself in the work and find a reason to keep going, because it's kind of a forever thing.
It's okay to try and fail than just not trying at all and just regretting your whole life. So our today's guest is a storyteller at heart. She's an actor, she's a creator, a community builder who is passionate about using her voice to inspire and connect. She's the founder of Chicago Actors Hub, a platform that brings aspiring actors and filmmakers together, and she thrives on meaningful conversations. With her growth mindset and love for people, she's on the mission to make this industry a lot more inclusive, connected, and empowering. Please welcome Saloni Nahar to the Ramsha Podcast. How are you doing?
That's such a sweet intro. Thank you. I'm doing good. I'm a little hot. It's like really hot in here, but
No, it is. Pleasure to have you here, and I'm really excited for us to dive into this conversation. I would love to know about your journey. What inspired you to become an actor as a South Asian woman?
yeah, I think it started, honestly, a lot of people's stories might have started during the pandemic when everybody was rethinking their life choices. I think growing up, it's always an interest that I've had, but finally in the pandemic, when we were thinking about how much time do we have left, how long are we going to be quarantined, it really made me feel like the best time to go after what we really want is now. So kind of a combination of a desire I've always had and timing that pushed it finally.
I think as a South Asian woman, it's not easy to follow your dreams and passions, right? There is a lot of pressure to live your life a certain way. So for you to be able to do that is really empowering. But so far in your career, right, in all the years that you have been working, what's the biggest challenge that you have faced as an actor?
The biggest challenge, there's so many things I could say. One of the biggest challenges has maybe been sustainability. I think with anything in life, you want to lose 50 pounds, you want to give a TED Talk, you want to start a podcast. As you know, there's so many other steps that come before. So I think with this goal, it requires a lot of grit and continuation, because, some people book their dream role at 17 and then they still have to keep going. So I think the biggest challenge is to ground yourself in the work and find a reason to keep going, because it's kind of a forever thing. You never really, it doesn't end.
And I think you started Chicago Actors Hub, which is there to bring all these filmmakers and actors together and create a way for them. But I would love to know what inspired you to create this community.
Definitely. So I think you're also going to have Sunny, who a guest on the podcast. So what Sunny did with Dinner Club, he started with founders. He started with entrepreneurs in Chicago and creating a space for them. And he was able to make this a better community and have more support through the platform Pi. Similarly, I was motivated by what he was doing and thinking about how I wanted to also host on Pi and what I could do in that way. And it made me think about the communities I'm a part of. And when I thought about how many people I've met over the last couple years on different sets and different classes, I realized my network of actors is so big. And similar to how he started creating this space for founders and creatives, I could create a space for actors. That was the kind of starting point.
Well, that's amazing. So you have this organization, this club that caters to aspiring actors. So you have a very specific type of audience, which is great. Usually in the South Asian families, it is perceived that acting, filmmaking, or just going into the entertainment industry is not really safe. It's not stable, whether it's monetary or in terms of safety. What's your take on that? So, like, when you were starting out as an actor, what role did your family and your parents played?
Well, my parents are amazing, and I think they know that I've always been an actor. I've always been a kid interested in theatrics and film. It's something that I've shared with them. You know, in some of my videos that I made during the pandemic, I cast my mom, I cast my sister. So I think part of it is like it's a gift to be able to share with your parents, and uh, I think that also allows them to feel to understand, maybe, like I think any advice I would give someone if they feel like they're running into resistance from a family member, I think it could look like performing a monologue for them or taking them to a theater production that you really appreciate and like bring them into the work. Because I think now, like pretty often when I see my parents, they'll ask like, "Oh, any auditions? Who's knocking? Who's calling?" And I think the last time my dad asked me like, "Oh, any auditions?" And I was like, "Oh, no, nothing." And he's like, "Oh." But like I think now that they know that this is something that I'm going for, they are a part of it too. It's not just my vision, it's something that I've like brought them into, and I think that my commitment to it shows them that this is something that I care about.
No, I love that. I love how you made them part of the process. I think what a lot of people do is they just don't bother to educate their parents and involve them in the process. But if you talk to them, if you have an open conversation with them and you actually tell them what you're gonna be doing, obviously they'll support you.
And I also think I'm taking way too much credit because honestly, 2019, graduated college, I decided, okay, I have my degree. I want to be able to start looking into acting opportunities in the city. I reached out to a friend, and my friend was like, you should go to Second City. Don't take acting classes there, take improv. I told my mother, and my mom, my dad, and my sister all came with me to the first improv test workshop. It was a family affair. And they said if we signed that day, we could get discounted prices, like for a full term class. So my dad was like, nah, I'm not interested. But me, my mom, and my sister started doing improv classes together. And I think my mom did that because she wanted to. So and being an actor is not like a desire of hers, but it's interesting and it's fun, and she's also a really creative person. So I think it's a combination where I've been given the like support and interest of my family, and I'm trying to also like open up about like what my process is so they can always feel like they know what I'm doing or like what I'm earning, or like I think that makes everything make more sense.
Well, shout out to your parents.
Yeah, shout out to my parents.
They're amazing. I think that when your family is in support of your dreams and aspirations, everything else becomes easier, because even if you face rejections from auditions, if you are in a bad mood, well, you have your family to come to, and you see them and you see their support, and that just motivates you to work harder the next day. And I think what's lacking at the moment is a lot of aspiring actors don't have family support for whatever reason. So I believe a community like Chicago Actors Hub is also there to kind of support them emotionally and mentally, which is really important.
100%. And I really think everybody needs a combination of external support and internal support. So regardless of where that external support is coming from, if you don't get it necessarily originally from your immediate family, and while you're working towards that, yes, if you can find your chosen family, or if you can find one friend who believes in you. That was actually really also beneficial to me when I started posting videos. I remember feeling doubtful about like one video and just having one friend make a slight comment like, it's funny, you should post it, you know? Like I think remembering moments when people give you encouragement, regardless of where they come from, is always going to be your external source of validation. On the flip side, I think a strong sense of internal validation and motivation for me is when I think about my 90-year-old self. I'm doing the work now because when I'm 90, am I going to look at these old photos and think like, Saloni, like you had it. You had it in you. You didn't try. Like, you know, I want her to feel I gave her the chance to live the life that like she would want. And if I don't do that, so it's kind of like I really think there's a lot of internal work involved, because there are going to be times where your family or your friends see that you're struggling, and they're going to want to protect you from it. They're going to want to take you out of the industry. They're going to ask you, is it really worth it? So I think support can show up for you, but it's not the only thing. Like we all have to individually hold ourselves accountable, because nobody else can pull you out if you're not willing to yourself.
No, I love that. I think you need to be your biggest cheerleader. Like, if you don't believe in your dreams, no one else will. And I know it sounds very cliche, but it's actually true. If I'm not confident about what I'm doing, why would you come and show up and support me? You would not. Um, I also love the fact that you mentioned when you uh, when you're 90 years old and you're going to look back at what you do, you don't want to live with any regrets. So it's okay to try and fail than just not trying at all and just regretting your whole life. And I think that's a very powerful mindset to have.
I think just to double down on that, I'm already starting to feel that exercise when I look at some photos or videos of myself, even from 2023. And I remember how I was feeling at that time. I was feeling insecure. I was feeling rejected. I was feeling heartbroken. And I'm looking at this stuff that I still put out at the time, the acting work I did. And I'm like really amazed at how I was then. You know, I think a good way of like practicing that exercise is to already like look back at moments in your life when you showed yourself, and at the time you felt like, oh, this isn't that great, and now you can look back at it and be like, wait, actually that was really amazing. And I think the practice of having gratitude for your past self and how hard you worked in the past can keep you going. Yeah.
Love that. Um, Shifting the focus back to the acting industry, right? What are some of the common misconceptions that you believe exist in the acting industry? Misconceptions, so things that people believe but are not actually true.
I Mel Robbins, not Mel Robbins, Elizabeth Gilbert, Liz Gilbert, she wrote Big Magic, and something she touches upon there is the idea of the starving artist. And that really, really resonated with me, because I think anybody who decides to pursue the arts or a career that's not as stable needs to understand the volatility of it and how that can affect a person. So I think there is perhaps not a misconception, but you know, I think also misconceptions sometimes come from a kernel of truth. You know, this idea that if you want to pursue acting or filmmaking, it's unstable and it's uncertain, and like you're going to be a starving artist forever. I think I want artists to like take the power back and just think about how they can make this sustainable for themselves. For me, that looked like luckily having a good job, stable job, financial paying job for a couple years before I could take a break, live off savings, and then after that, go back to a stable job, accumulate some savings, do some work on the side. And I think what pursuing a creative career looks like depends on the person, because I don't think an artist has to be troubled or starving or have something else going on. I believe in like the protection of the person first, and I think a great artist can still have a very full life, and it's about figuring out like what that looks like for you.
So what you're saying is that, contrary to popular belief, it's not really about just going all in and neglecting your basic life needs and wants. Rather, it's about striking the right balance, because acting as a career can be very uncertain, right? You have this opportunity one day, and then maybe you don't have work for the next 8, 9 months. So then how do you sustain yourself? And I think for that to be ready, to face all of that, it's important to have savings. It's important to have like a good financial backing.
Yeah, I also think with acting or with any other creative career, it's not a monolith. So I could book a role that's like the best exciting thing and it could just be on set one day. And maybe the next thing I book, I hate it. Maybe I hate going to work every day. I think there needs to be an understanding that like anything you desire always has complexities and nothing is ever like what it seems. So there's a lot of variance in any career, and not every acting project is going to be the same. So you're not going to feel the same level of inspired. So you have to find other things outside of the career, whether it's like pouring into like your family or your friends or community service to build a full life regardless of what's going on in your career.
No, I love that, and I think it's a very unique perspective, but an important one. Being an actor doesn't always mean that you have to be an actor at all times. You can have other passions. You can have other things you're interested in, and pursue them. And I so my acting coach told me this, that if you pursue other things, let's say if you enjoy painting, right, or if you enjoy traveling, and you do all of these things, that adds to your performance. It makes you a better actor because you're able to catch on to certain nuances and understand how you can emote and perform better. So I completely agree with that. And I would also say that acting as a profession, it's hard, right? It's one of the toughest careers to break into. But what I've seen a lot of people do is they're not focusing on the right things. They're very much focused on getting visibility, as in maybe posting on social media or doing big PR, right? But they're not focusing on the craft. So, not taking enough time to prep before giving an audition, not working on how they can emote better in terms of their facial expressions or their dialogue delivery. Um, I would love to know from you, what does prep look for you before you audition? What are some of the things that you do to audition better?
Well, first I want to address like what you just said. I think the reason why someone wants to be an actor or what draws someone to the craft is different for everyone. So everybody having their own process is whether or not that works for them or is fulfilling for them. I think they get to decide. For example, I had someone really close to me once in college just tell me I want to be famous. They were like, Saloni, you just want to be famous. That's a weird thing to hear because regardless of not if that's my desire, I think that's possible that that's like what someone else who wants to be an actor feels. Separate from that, I think what fills someone's cup might be like going viral or having a big social media following. What might fill someone else's cup is performing a small play for 5 people in the audience, but they feel so excited and motivated by the work. So I think it comes to genuinely like why someone wants to be an actor. And I'm happy that I'm in like an acting class right now because just a couple days ago we were asked to sit in a circle and like remind ourselves why we want to be an actor and why we want to do this work. So when I bring that back to auditioning, I think every role is different. And Chicago is a huge commercial market. So what that means is I would say, a handful of auditions I will get will be, or more than a handful, majority, I would say probably this year, if I'm remembering correctly, is for commercial work. So that might be like any brand, right? So an audition for that will be a couple lines and there's not high stakes, there's not a relationship, there's not all those words you hear about when you're doing narrative work. So I think prep for that is it's a different ball game for me. In terms of actual motion scene work, I I got a tip from a class a long time ago that the best thing you can do for yourself is memorize your lines, because once you are off book, once you know your lines, then you can actually focus on the work. Because if you don't know the lines, or if you have to think about what you have to say, you are out of it. The minute you're like in it, but you're like, what's next? You've snapped out of that deep emotion. So I, yeah. So part of my process, I think the first thing I do as of now, but now I'm in acting class that I might change my process. But my current process has been get the script, focus on memorizing the lines, get the lines, get the lines, get the lines. And once I have the lines, then I can start to think about anything else and how I want to perform it.
Right. The first key thing is to memorize your lines.
And I've also gotten the advice or note, which I also try to do, is read the full scene. I think sometimes in the beginning people forget that, people just look at their lines, but that's not, you have to read what the other person is saying to you to even understand why that might be something you said. Because if I read the lines of the people before me, imagine for a minute, I don't know what I'm going to say, but I can maybe make an educated guess based on what was just said to me. So I think sometimes it's easy to just like take yourself out of it, but you really have to read the full script and understand the full context before you can then focus on your part, because then you're going to be disconnected if you don't understand the other person's lines or what they're going to say to you.
Yeah, and I think performing is a lot about just reacting to the other person and what they're saying. So it's important for you to have context about the overall scene as well as what the other person is gonna say, right? If right now, if I was just talking to myself, I wouldn't be talking the way I'm talking, right? So it's really about action, reaction. Awesome. You mentioned about getting associated with different agencies and getting auditions from them. So how does that process look like for someone who is just starting out and they don't know which agencies to contact, they don't have any idea about the industry overall, what would you suggest them to do?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of Google, just like Google top 10 agencies in whatever city you're in, to start to have even any sense of name recognition, because you have to be looking at these agencies to, so because then if you look at a list, for example, when you type in Google like top 10 agencies in my city, then you have those top 10 agencies in your mind, back of your mind, so that when you now start to go meet people and talk to people and ask them who they're represented with, you can start to have familiarity if you start to hear an agency pop up a lot or not. And then I think it's really important to start building community. So if you're in a class, or if you go to a Actors Hub event, or if you go to a show, you can look up those actors. Let's say you go to a theater performance and you really, really love how someone performed, or you watch a TV show and you know that one of the actors in that TV show is from your city. You look them up and try to see if you can find out who they're represented by. Once you get an idea of who is even out there, then I think it would be good to try to like cold reach out to someone who's represented by them to get an understanding of how they signed with them. Because I think at this point in my acting career, I have been signed with 4 different agencies. So now I'm currently with one, but even when I was with the other ones, every single one of them communicated with me differently, and my process of signing with them was different for all of them. It's because of how the industry is. So there's no one way. I think the best thing someone can do is research and then find people who they think are great actors or are booking great work or that are inspiring them, and ask them specifically about maybe their agency. Or you have to just start building, because and you can cold apply. One of the best pieces of advice I also got is I cold applied to one of my first agencies. I didn't hear back. I was on the phone with someone and he said follow up. I followed up, and I gave that same advice to someone else who had to follow up a couple times, and then finally they got signed. I think it's important to separate ourselves and realize what other people have going on. Like, to just think for a minute, and any agency might be getting 500 submissions a day. or not. Maybe they're getting 50. Regardless, once you put it in the context of what they might be getting, you realize you just have to follow up, break through the noise, follow them on Instagram, start commenting, make yourself visible. I think it's easy to take things personally. I think early in my career, not even with acting, I would reach out to someone, they would respond, but then they would stop responding, and I would feel like, oh, personal, they hate me, they don't want to work with me anymore. When in reality, they might have had 10 other people reach out to them, and I kind of just fell to the back burner. And I think unless someone tells you, stop contacting me, I'm not interested, and this is very purely in a professional standpoint, that's very different socially, I think you have to believe that someone else is just extremely, extremely busy. And until they give you like the, we're not interested in signing you as an actor right now, I would stop pursuing that. But also, like, there's so many different agencies. You can cold apply to 20 today and then see what hits. If none of them hits, follow up with all of them. If none of that hits, follow them all on Instagram. Like, I think because other people are signed with agencies, that means you can be too.
No, that's really true. Do not take rejections personally, because they're not even if you get rejected, even if someone criticizes you, remember it's not you. It's your work, and if you work hard, you can always improve your craft. You can always get better. It's not that they hate you or anything, right? It's just that there's a lot of competition and they just expect better from you.
And the biggest thing is because an agent is running a business. So they don't want to sign someone unless they believe you will book work for them. Because a typical, or how an agency relationship should work is you don't pay them at all. They sign you, and now they're doing all the work to get you auditions, because when you book that audition, then they're going to get compensation on it. So an agency is not going to want to sign someone if they don't believe they're serious, if they've done the work, and that they're going to book in the room. Because if they sign you and you don't book anything,
Then it's a loss for them.
all that work and they've gotten no money.
It's just like any other business. They're really not doing charity. There's this misconception that exists within a lot of actors that I talk to, is once you make it as an actor, now I don't know what that definition is, but once you make it, you're suddenly rich, you're famous, you have your life is all put together. And then what a lot of people do from there is they spend the money on any and everything. It's like they waste their money, whether it's getting a new car, clothes, high end dinners, just showing off in front of the public. And I do understand that when you are a public figure, you need to have a certain lifestyle, right? You need to project yourself in a certain way. But what a lot of people don't think about is you can book something today, but you might not have work for the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years. So it's really important to have savings. Do you think that financial literacy should be taught in acting schools? And what are some of the practical money lessons that you have learned?
100,000%. Not just in acting school, but I mean, I went to business school. I got a business degree, and I did not have to take one personal finance class for my business degree. I want to, it was definitely probably an elective option. So, but at the time, unless someone's telling you like this is an important life skill that you should put into your curriculum, which is what can happen if it is a mandated course, I think personal finance should be across the board required for everyone, especially because I think we're reaching a really cool point in time where, because of the internet and content, almost anyone can start pursuing multiple businesses and be a multi hyphenate. You can work a 9 to 5 and then film a podcast later, or you can film a podcast and be a content creator and an actor and do all these things.
The major takeaway has been to just be persistent and not really dwell on or what if or any of those excuses. It was a pleasure having you, and I loved how we went about this, and I am really excited.